If you're a management consultant who's burned out, overworked, and wondering if there's a life beyond the 60 hours work week and the constant travel, then this episode is for you. I'm San, and I spent nearly a decade in Big Four consulting, and I left that all behind in 2024. Here's the real story of how I got out and rebuilt my life on my own terms. Let me take you back to 2014. I'm 21, fresh out of college with a computer degree, and I just got my first job at Oracle Consulting, making about $80K a year. For my parents, this was huge. Their son had made it in America. The prestige, the stability, and the clear path up. And honestly, I bought into it. I was driven by the same things that pull most high performers into consulting: the challenge, the fast track career, and the idea that I was solving big problems for big companies. I spent a bit over a year at Oracle, and then I got recruited into Accenture. This was an actual consulting firm, and I was super excited about it. Better projects, better pay, better prestige, to be honest. And then a year in with Accenture, I got my MBA while working full time. Yeah, I was already working 50 to 60 hours work week and decided to add business school on top. Classic consultant move, right? After a couple of years at Accenture, I made my first big mistake. I thought that I was smart enough to just leave and start my own business. Had no plan, no strategy. It was just pure arrogance. I started a social media marketing business and went all in on this entrepreneurial lifestyle. And I spent about $70,000 on coaching programs, courses, and I've tried everything. Amazon FBA, dropshipping, crypto, even an e-ticketing startup idea. I was basically throwing money at every shiny object, hoping that something would stick. Then COVID hit, and I lost almost all my clients overnight. There I was, $70,000 poorer and no business. Then having to crawl back to consulting with my tail between my legs. But here's the thing, I wasn't feeling defeated. I was more determined than ever. The failure has taught me that wanting to be an entrepreneur just isn't enough. You need a real plan, real skills, and real systems. I decided to go back to consulting, but this time with a strategy to build something on the side while I learned what I was doing. So Deloitte had recruited me, and this was the big leagues, one of the big four. I was leading big transformation projects and managing teams, but I knew for sure that I wasn't trying to go on the partner track. The next couple of years were this weird double life. By day, I was a successful Deloitte consultant, leading big projects for big government and Fortune 100 companies, building decks and sending emails in the middle of the night. But then I started a business on the side to work on nights and weekends, which is a digital marketing agency focused on automation. But this time I was building systematically while collecting a paycheck. I was helping top global companies transform their operations while my life was falling apart. I had no personal life, no real relationships outside work. And despite the $150K salary, I felt completely empty. And then there were my parents. Every time I mentioned that I want to leave consulting and the corporate life, they'd remind me of their sacrifices. We came to America so you could have stability. Why would you throw that away? This guilt was crushing. The moment that everything changed was when my firm fired my manager. She was my mentor, someone I really looked up to. She had been at the firm for 12 years, knew the business inside and out, had great client relationships, and honestly, she was one of the best consultants I had ever worked with. And I'll never forget that Wednesday morning when she asked me to grab coffee, which wasn't an unusual thing. We did that regularly to talk about projects and my career path. But this time felt different. She looked exhausted when she sat down, and I could tell something was wrong immediately. It didn't feel like our usual casual coffee chat. She said, "I got the call yesterday. They're letting me go." And I literally felt my stomach drop. This wasn't possible. She was the person that everyone went to when projects were falling apart. Clients specifically would request her, and she'd built relationships that brought millions of dollars for the firm. I asked, "What happened? Did a project go bad?" "No," she said. And I could see the hurt in her eyes. My billing rate is too high for the current market. That's it. We sat there in silence for what felt like forever. Here was someone who had mentored dozens of people, who had given everything for this company, and they discarded her like she was nothing. Not because she wasn't good enough, but because her billing rate had grown too much over the 12 years of excellent work. And that's when reality hit me like a truck. Loyalty is a one-way street in consulting. You either move up or get out, or they'll get you out when you keep moving up. You can give them everything, and the moment that they decide that you're no longer needed, then you're gone. If someone as excellent as her wasn't safe, none of us were. And maybe you know that feeling, that Sunday night dread when you look at all of the meetings and the deadlines that you have for the week, that golden handcuff that keeps you trapped, making good money for work that is slowly killing you. Or worse, that identity crisis of, if I'm not a consultant, who am I? That was me for years. So I remember sitting in that coffee shop for another hour after she left. Here I was, working 60, 70 hours work weeks, missing everything that mattered in my personal life, all for a company that would drop me the moment my rate became too expensive. That night, I went home and I told my girlfriend what happened. I said, I can't keep doing this. I just need to get out. And I told her this because I realized that I was building someone else's dream while they held a knife to my throat. My mentor getting fired wasn't just her wake-up call. It was also mine. So from that night to actually leaving took about 6 months. And in a true consultant fashion, I built spreadsheets, analyzing all the different decisions I could make. I talked to mentors, researched different options, and ran a bunch of scenarios about leaving in my head. My entire identity was wrapped up in being a successful consultant. If I left, what would I tell people? What would I tell my parents? How do you just walk away from a $150,000 salary and the prestige of the Big Four? The breakthrough moment came when I realized that I was using consulting skills on everything except my own life. I was helping clients make big changes worth millions of dollars, but I couldn't make a career change that would actually make me happy. So at this point, I had about $40,000 saved up, which is enough runway to give myself a real shot. But more importantly, my side business was already proving itself. So I wasn't jumping into the unknown. I was finally committing to something that I had already built. The hardest part about leaving was the conversation with my parents. When I told them that I was leaving Deloitte to focus on my business full time, my mom was not happy. But I could tell that this time it was different. I was showing them real progress with what I'm doing with the business, real revenue, real clients. I finally gave notice to the firm that I was leaving. It had been about 4 years at this point, and walking out for the last time was surreal. Part relief, part terror, part, what the hell am I doing? After I left Deloitte, I doubled down on my business full time, and within months, it had replaced my consulting income. And I was also able to win the SaaS Gold Award for our automation innovations. So what's the difference this time? I had a real business model, real systems, and real experience from my first failure. But the real win wasn't the money. It was getting my life back. No more having to build decks in the middle of the night, no more having to travel in the middle of the week, and no more pretending to care about projects that would get shelved anyway. I was finally building something that mattered. Today, I run multiple businesses that practically run themselves. My first side business that turned into a full-time business continues to grow, and I built other automated systems that generate revenue without me being tied to a desk 60 hours a week. But my new mission is something completely different. I'm launching Consultant Exit to help consultants transition into careers that they actually want, just like I did. Here's the thing, not everyone needs to become an entrepreneur like me, but every consultant deserves to do something that fulfills them without sacrificing their income. Whether that's moving to a corporate strategy role, joining a startup, going freelance, or yes, starting their own business. The path doesn't matter. What matters is that it's your choice, not a choice that was made for you by someone else. What I realized is that most consultants approach their exit the same way I did the first time, with hope and desperation instead of strategy and planning. So I systemized exactly how to do it the right way. I call it the exit framework. Let me walk you through it quickly. E is evaluating your reality. Ask yourself, where am I right now? And is this the life that I want? You want to be assessing your career, your health, values, finances, and your life alignment. It's not about quitting tomorrow. It's about finding clarity. Now, X is for exploring new paths. I know that explore doesn't start with X, but stay with me here. You want to ask yourself, what else is possible? This is where you test out different options, whether it's freelancing, startups, coaching, digital products. You want to start experimenting while you're still employed. And I is for identity shift. You want to ask yourself, who am I without the consultant label? This is the emotional pivot. You let go of the status addiction and redefine yourself around your values, your vision, your purpose, and not just your job title. Now, lastly, T is for taking strategic action. Ask yourself at this point, how do I build the life that I actually want? You want to create a 90-day plan, and then from there, take massive action. Measure the results, and then surround yourself with support. This framework is what separates a successful transition from just another expensive mistake. Now, my goal with this podcast is to continue sharing my story transitioning from consulting, and I also plan on bringing other ex-consultants who have done the same and are now doing the things that they love to do. So if this story resonates with you and you want my help with your transition, there's a link below for you to book a call with me or my team, and we'll go over your exit readiness, where you are, where you want to go, and what it'll take to get there. But let me be clear, I don't work with just anyone. You need to be seriously wanting to leave from where you are and go to a place that you actually desire. And you need to be committed to taking action, not just thinking about it for another 2 years. So if you're ready to treat your exit like the strategic project it should be, book that call. And if you're not ready yet, just keep listening to these episodes until you are. All right, see you in the next episode.